The deadline is here. All the attorney paperwork is in.
The medical cannabis trial over signatures is now in the hands of a judge in Lincoln. Brian Mastery joins us live now. Brian, what happens next?
Well, one thing is clear, Jacqueline. The voters have spoken by a wide margin. Nebraskans voted overwhelmingly to legalize medical marijuana. 7 of every 10 voters said yes. Those results will be certified on December 2nd. In the meantime, Lancaster County District Court Judge Susan Strong will now decide one of two things. She could throw out the case, believing the Secretary of State did not prove there were enough questionable signatures to disenfranchise thousands of people who signed the petition. It had nearly 90,000 signatures. Or she could say she believes there was fraud, massive fraud, and force another trial when the medical cannabis ballot sponsors would need to prove each signature in question is valid. The judge is cognizant of the short time frame before certification, mentioning she wanted to make a decision quickly to give the Nebraska Supreme Court time to weigh in. Remember, certification is 2 weeks from today, and whichever way she rules will likely be appealed. In paperwork filed today, the plaintiffs say it's a simple equation. The ballot petitioners are supposed to follow the rules. The medical marijuana ballot petitioners say it's clear the numbers from the government do not add up, saying they're propping up their case with 2 witnesses who lack any credibility. I'm Brian Mastery, First Alert 6.